The neurohypophysis is simply another name for the posterior pituitary. The reason that it is named neurohypophysis is that it contains the axons of neurons that arise in the hypothalamus. They will travel from the hypothalamus and terminate in the neurohypophysis, and their route is through the infundibulum. The posterior pituitary does not produce hormones itself. Instead, it is going to store hormones that are produced by the hypothalamus. They will be released from the neurohypophysis when triggered to do so by neuronal signals. In other words, action potentials. This shows you a lovely diagram on the left, which indicates that there are axons from those neurosecretory cells of the hypothalamus terminating in the posterior pituitary. And when you look at the posterior pituitary on a slide or in a micrograph, it looks kind of stringy versus the anterior pituitary, which looks much more cellular or glandular. And at the end of this section, there is a comparison that we will do. So if you see something that looks kind of stringy on slides or on a micrograph, and you're talking about the pituitary, think posterior pituitary. One of the hormones that is produced in the hypothalamus that is stored by the posterior pituitary is ADH, anti-diuretic hormone. It is going to be released when triggered to do so in response to either a rise in the concentration of solutes in the blood or a decrease in blood pressure or volume. Its job is so that you retain water. It's going to control water balance and increase blood pressure because of it. If you are retaining water, you will increase your blood pressure. It's going to target structures of the kidney, which are known as the collecting ducts. It causes them to reabsorb water. That water is going to be put back into the circulatory system, and you will have less urine because of it. The primary function of this hormone is to decrease the amount of water expelled by the kidney. What it does is right in its name. It will also cause you to decrease sweating and increase blood pressure because you are retaining more water. So what about a hangover? Sheesh. What role does ADH play when you have a hangover? Well, here's the deal. We know that ADH is going to be released by the posterior pituitary. It is going to be inhibited by alcohol. So the kidneys are going to release water to the bladder, and it's about 1 cup of alcohol is going to trigger about the release of 3 to 4 cups of water. So your hangover is actually due mainly to dehydration. You get headaches, and that's literally because the body is taking water from organs, including your brain. You will be urinating a lot, which means you will be losing more sodium and magnesium and potassium, important ions. That might trigger headaches, nausea, vomiting. And in addition, alcohol is going to break down glycogen, which is stored mostly in the liver. There's also some in skeletal muscle, specific for skeletal muscle contraction. And that glucose will be urinated out. Oh, the joy. If you have hyposecretion of ADH, you will have a form of diabetes, which is known as diabetes insipidus. Diuresis, dehydration, thirst. And what causes it? Potentially, maybe a head injury, potentially a pituitary tumor. You might have had a craniotomy. If you are secreting insufficient ADH, you will not be able to retain enough water. Please remember that diabetes insipidus, jeepers, is different than diabetes mellitus, also known as diabetes type 1 or juvenile onset diabetes, or diabetes type 2, adult onset diabetes. That is the one that is not dependent on insulin. Juvenile diabetes, type 1 diabetes is. Oxytocin is another hormone that's going to be produced by, you got it, the hypothalamus and stored in the posterior pituitary. It is Greek for swift birth. And if you are giving birth, boy, I hope you have a swift one. It's going to target smooth muscles, so it'll trigger uterine contractions for labor and delivery. It's also going to target breasts, and specifically the secretory alveoli of the breast, which will in turn cause milk ejection. It is one of the few examples of positive feedback mechanisms in the body, and I would know that if I were you. Most other mechanisms in the body are negative feedback systems. I like this because oxytocin is also the love hormone. It's going to help you counteract stress and anxiety, reduce anxiety. So, maybe behind many of the health benefits associated with meditation, massage, acupuncture, and if you are appreciative, if you show gratitude, and if you have emotional connections, they will also boost oxytocin levels. Fascinating. Here we go. I want you to tell me which side is the adenohypophysis, anterior pituitary, and which side is the neurohypophysis, posterior pituitary. Which one looks stringier and which one looks more glandular or cellular? Can you tell? Someone, if you cannot, someone ask me about this in class and we'll go over it.